What's up, folks? Nice to meet y'all. Recently, I noticed a bit of an opening in the YouTube landscape. I was watching some of Fantana's reaction to this album, and I saw him skip the song Charge Them as a Fee because he thought that shit was boring, and I just assumed that whole thing wasn't going to turn out very well, and Sean C turned to a full-time Twitch streamer, so I figured me, as a somewhat articulate ball knower born in the 21st century who understands this kind of music, could try my hand and see if I can give it the proper coverage it deserves. And hey, if this shit can get 30 views in the first day, I'll consider myself hired. Anyways, after getting strung along for 4 years, like just the saddest you know, I'm proud to say that we finally made it, and it was almost exactly what I expected, if not slightly better. What I was expecting was essentially Whole Lotta Red 2. Not in its sound necessarily, but more in its impact and assembly. Both these albums are massive artistic jumps from what came prior. They're both highly anticipated projects that feel simultaneously rushed and like they took forever at the same time, and both are home to giant track lists filled with equal parts unfinished and completely out of place songs, as there are certified hits which will inevitably and unfortunately spawn a brand new batch of little opium babies to pollute the underground with a refried future impressions. The places to which this album tends to differ from Whole Lotta Red, I think is largely to its benefit. For one, the production and mixing is just miles better, and I know niggas think it's lame to care about shit like that, which is fine, but I'm on YouTube because I'm obsessed with this shit, and it genuinely bothers me just how empty and thin and lacking in depth some of the instrumentals and mixes on Whole Lotta Red are. I also just generally prefer the sound of this album compared to Whole Lotta Red. I really think he has something here in the way that he's managed to fuse the rawest and grimiest elements of trap music with these metal and industrial influences. I think Carti is the only person I've seen beyond JPEG Mafia, I'm sure there's more, who really knows how to properly incorporate rock and metal music into rap and make it hit as hard as it rightfully should. Even on Whole Lotta Red, he doesn't really take anything tangible from those genres outside of maybe his vocals, and instead spends the album kind of alluding to this vague concept of a rock star. Some of the live version of those songs do actually start to embrace some real rock shit, but even then, at least to me, the way they're incorporated feels cheap and surface level, which is in stark contrast to how seamlessly they fit in here. I'm talking specifically about tracks like Pop Out, which successfully continues the trend of this nigga knowing exactly how to make an entrance. It's not even one of my favorites or anything, but it's a strong start, and the instrumental is probably the most interesting and abrasive the album has to offer. In regards to Carti's performance, it definitely sets you up with a nice little showcase of just how unhinged and expressive he can be, and that energy remains a consistent thread sewn throughout all this album's best moments, stitching all these influences together, creating a sound like nothing else. Can't say the same about Crush though. Somehow Travis Scott managed to slither his way into Carti's good graces to the point where he basically has free reign to fuck up this album however he pleases. He's the most featured artist on this album by far, and despite that, he never really provides much of anything at all. Even at his best, which is this song, all it amounts to is empty aesthetics with no substance at all. But that's like the Travis Scott signature move. The instrumental is cool and all, but it just kind of meanders aimlessly, giving off the impression of this huge buildup until it just ends. And Carti don't really do anything extra to make it worth listening to. It's not bad or anything, it's just substanceless. Tracks 3 and 4 are the only songs released prior to the album that managed to make the final cut, aside from one other one, which is probably for the best. I had track 3, K-pop, formerly known as Ketamine, at second in a little tier list I made for a video, ranking all the singles he had dropped leading up to this album, and I stand by that placement. I think this is a really solid song, and it's probably the most fleshed out this trap metal sound has been. The guitar riffs on this thing fit in so seamlessly with his oppressive swamp of an atmosphere that Carti cuts straight through with some of his best and most unhinged flows and vocal ones like it's a normal ass instrumental. Unlike K-pop though, I do not stand by my placement of Evil Jordan. I had that shit at fourth, but let's be honest, that's probably his best single since At Me. The album version though, I know some of y'all are gonna disagree obviously, but I just can't. I can't with this TikTok edit ass intro fit for a 2012 Minecraft AMV. I can't tell if Carti saw this shit while he was doom scrolling and thought it was so hard that he just had to put it so it plays at the beginning of the song every time, or if Travis Scott had one of the Mike Dean moments where he thinks every single song needs this dramatic ass synth solo breakdown thing. Like, it was cool the first time on Astroworld on the first listen. I'm tired of this shit on the music that you specifically craft to have these moments, why would I want this shit on my grimy ass, raw ass mixtape Playboi Carti song? Like, make it a fucking skippable cutscene or something, bro. Can we not? Speaking of which, unlike K-pop and pop out, Evil Jordan has a lot less of these metal and industrial influences floating on the surface, yet it still fits perfectly into this eerie trap metal tapestry. It doesn't feel disconnected even slightly from those other two. It's super cohesive. I think it's cause, unlike some of the other songs in this album, the way in which he goes about channeling this energy you'd get from a late 2000s Wayne or a Future and Thug in the early 2010s is a lot more unique to him. Instead of just ripping a beat straight out the Time Machine like he do on Radar or going full fucking Future skin suit like he do on Toxic, he creates this real raw, uneasy, almost subtly unhinged energy that on face don't sound anything like some shit from that era of music, but in spirit still feels like it's cut from the same cloth. I was really looking forward to hearing Carti on more production from Cardo Got Wings for this exact reason. Something about his sound selection with the percussion and the space he leaves in the instrumentals works so well in creating this eerie, subtly industrial vibe. Swamp Bizzo's presence is one that is obviously an allusion to and intended to really enforce that mixtape era feeling in this project. I mean, that literally hosted 3 Young Thug mixtapes, but I actually think he ended up working out perfectly as this fucking lunatic hype man for the more unhinged tracks. He's at his absolute best on songs like Crank, where he's in the background, out of breath, screaming, just losing his grip on reality. HBA is the only other song that got released as a single prior to the album, and it's never really stuck with me. There's that one cool moment at like 2 minutes 30, but it's really only there so you get catfished by the TikTok sound. That's the only good part. The rest of the song just don't compare. I find that boring, to be honest. Kendrick is the next most featured artist after Travis, and I'm conflicted on how I feel. Mojo Jojo is my favorite of all his contributions, and it's also one of my favorites on the album. I think he suited really well for this little freaked out ad-lib hype man role. He's kind of like a Swamp Bizzo substitute. He's been doing shit like this in his music a lot lately, and in works with people like Baby Keem, and I'm definitely with it. I really like this little intro he does, and I think he manages to properly match Carti's energy here better than he does anywhere else. I think the song is way better with his inclusion, but it also probably helps that this don't even have to rap. What he does on Backdoor is a bit different. I personally just haven't been that big of a fan of Kendrick and his R&B bag after like damn, so this one just doesn't really do much for me. I do like Carti on this Surf Gang ass beat though. I never heard this nigga so sassy in my life. What that nigga say? Your whole gang just told, who's your leader? My hook asked me up. She a leader. I wasn't really with that little ad-lib sample thing when I heard this snippet some months ago, but I like it now. And there's this flow he does towards the end of the song, which in combination with this beat reminds me so much of India by Lanchy Foe, which is cool too. Good credit is what y'all really want to hear about though, huh? Not only is this one of, if not Carti's best performances on the entire album, it's also the song where Kendrick is the most prominent. Look, this nigga don't need my props. I'm gonna be honest, I just don't think he really belongs on a song like this. At least not in this form, and the little key modulation the beat does at the start of his verse just makes that so much more obvious than it already was, and makes the contrast between these two so much more extreme, and shifts the whole vibe of the song in a direction I don't think many of us were leaning to begin with. That's not to say it's bad, because I don't even know if this man is capable of writing a bad verse. It just doesn't work that well. Towards the end though, it gets a lot better, the beat goes back to normal, and Kendrick gets a lot more unhinged. Honestly, had it started that way, I doubt people would feel so strongly about it. I will say though, the way his verse ends, those last 3 words, and the way it's just back into Carti's chorus with those 808 hits, that's like the best part of the song. If somehow we managed to channel the energy of those last 3 words into his whole verse, we'd be having an entirely different conversation. On the other hand though, over the course of 2 albums, 54 songs, and in competition with people like Pre-Forthright Kanye, Kid Cudi, Lil Uzi Vert, The Weeknd, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, and the real heavy hitter himself, Ty Dolla $ign, Future has emerged yet again as by far the best feature on what is probably the best song on the album, Trim. I'm just playing, y'all. Charge Them Hoes a Fee is a damn near masterpiece. The instrumental is one of, if not the best in the entire album. Those little pulsing guitar things that come in and out at just the right moments are so sick. And fuck you, Fantano. How is it possible to not appreciate Future doing the Plutowski mumble shit over this beautiful ass instrumental to build up into the hook to drop right into this beautiful ass Carti verse? That intro alone is next level shit. But of course, like any great song on Playboi Carti's album Music, it has the government mandated Travis Scott feature tacked on the end to affect absolutely nothing. Track 6, 7, 8, and 9 is this little unfortunate foursome. Philly is just a Utopia throwaway with a Carti verse on it. I already touched on Radar, it just don't really do it for me. And apparently tracks 8 and 9 use AI on them, which is so lame. Even though it's probably more ethical for an artist to use AI of their own voice, it pisses me off so much more. I guess the Weeknd must smell like some straight ass or something, because Carti would rather let ChatGPT do his verse for him than actually spend time in the stew with bro to do it himself. This is the second time this nigga used AI on a verse with this nigga. Trim, this one got it. Walk and Crank, which I already mentioned before, are all some solid slaps. Crank is probably my favorite of that bunch. Wake Up Filthy go hard too, but of course it got that Travis treatment as well. I simply cannot take Carti serious on Cocaine Nose. I just can't. That nigga sound like woo-wop to me. I can't stop hearing it. Twin Trim just don't belong on the album like at all. If Uzi uploaded that shit as a YouTube single, then nobody would know it was supposed to be for the Carti album. The same with We Need All the Vibes, except this shit actually pissed me the fuck off. This shit is really the fucking vibe vampire. It shows up with no continuity in regard to any type of cohesion, just to give me this worthless ass thug verse over this Mario Kart Peach Beach ass instrumental. This shit don't even deserve to make it off SoundCloud. You really had the audacity to put this on the newest Carti album and advertise it as a real thug verse? That's so crazy. And as one last fuck you for good measure, they put Hitler's Greatest Soldier on this bitch too. I like the energy on Like Weezy a lot. It's got this bright ice cream truck ass instrumental. It's like this album's version of Meth from Whole Lotta Red, except it manages the dissonance of vibes between the verse and instrumentation and the sample way better. Also, Carti slid like crazy over this bitch. The Rich Kid sample is certainly a piece of rap history, but it don't hold that much significance to me. I'm not from Atlanta, and I was like 6 when these was popping. That's like barely sentient. Honestly, same with that SGP sample on Crank. All I know about that is that he be saying unhinged shit online and had beef with ASAP Mob or Raider Clan or something. Like a lot of people have pointed out, Olympian is this album's version of Over, but that's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have these two instrumentals with these main melodies that get grilled into your brain, along with that nostalgia, almost introspective type feeling. On the other side of that blade, though, is the fact that both these songs are kind of carried by the beat. Carti just don't do that much to make this track his. Opium Baby is a fan favorite, and rightfully so. It is absolutely one of the best on the album, in large part due to Carti's performance and all the vocal acrobats and shit he be doing. Also in large part due to this instrumental, which is just so derivative of all the cool shit Skywater been doing over the last year or so. Honestly, she deserves like an honorary producer credit or something. I also like how they got Swamp Izzo with a soundboard filled with only gunshots and one-liners of shit he said, and this dude just stimming on that bitch like it's a fidget toy. South Atlanta Baby is the final track of the album and the best closing track he's made for any album ever by far. I know I keep saying this, but this one for real is actually his best verse in the album. This nigga is rapping his ass off and I'm here for it. Anyway, that's all I got to say. You get a 10 out of 10 just for dropping, bro. Thank you.